Hi, everybody. Happy Thursday. I am going to do my usual and just give people time to connect on and to join. I'm going to find where some of my windows are so that I can see your comments as you come on. So I'm going to close some of these. A lot of these I don't need. Hi, Ellie. Good to see your wonderful profile picture. I'm starting to notice when people change their profile picture, I get all excited. So I think we should all just keep shaking it up, except it notifies everybody. So people think that something happened in your life when you just changed your profile picture. Hello, everyone. Greetings, 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 greetings. I was looking forward to today coming back on. Again, the Facebook Live sessions are simply time and space I wanted to set aside in case it's helpful to folks that at least there's a space created where we can come together and do some learning. Yes, I hope that I can bring some things to you each time. Also, just be space for you to connect with other people who are like-minded, at least in one way. They're working to learn and adopt the principles of reality-based leadership. They're working through trying to stay toggled up in these times. They're trying to bypass their egos. So connecting with like-minded people, hoping to normalize that whatever you're going through, there's no right way to go through this. And we definitely don't want you to do what I call spiritually bypass, which is pretend you got this when you don't. There's so much to be learned in the pain coming out of this or in the fear coming out of this. There's so much being revealed to us about where we are in life today, what our values are, what our choices are. It's like, I don't want to take away a minute of your emotions on this. I do want to make sure that you're not doing some things like thinking your feelings. There's one thing to feel and breathe and just be in touch with, but there's another thing to think your feelings, which is when you grab them and add story and get out into the future. But we think our feelings a lot. How many times when you see something on Facebook that you're scrolling through or on Instagram, and instead of just laughing, like letting yourself laugh and feel the feeling, you intellectually go, that's funny, and write back, LOL. That's thinking your feelings. So, like, when you overthink or intellectualize, like, just notice how often we probably are thinking our feelings. So it's good as people are coming on here. Welcome, everyone. One of the things I think Jaren asked, good to see you on last time, Jaren. People are wondering why I'm so tan and how being quarantined, I'm looking like this. Some of you don't know, but I have a home in Mexico. I came down here early March just for about 5 days. And that was a time where things started to change really rapidly. And I had come down on retreat. There's just a lot of really heavy stuff going on in my life and our family's lives. And I thought, I'll just go give myself some time. I had this really nice space in there. And as it was time for me to come back home to the business and my kids and all that good stuff, I was looking to traveling through Houston. That's when Houston had so many people that were spending 5 and 6 hours in very cramped spaces, not distancing, no way to distance coming through immigration. And I decided to postpone a few days. And as you guys know, day by day, things happened. We're now in Mexico on a total lockdown for 30 days. I'm in the Baja. They've sealed off the Baja. Nobody's in or out. As an American, I could get to the border and get in. There are some flights. But I'm just thinking right now that I'll help from here. And then when it seems like a reasonable idea, I'll get back to the States, quarantine. And so this is new for me because I would rather be in Omaha, Nebraska, trying to, help in food lines and testing lines. And that's my nature. So I'm being like in a timeout, I'm being called upon to help in different ways and to just be here alone. I'm here alone. And so Yeah, I'll talk more about my routine, but I'm tan, not because I lay out on the beach all day. My skin is such that it takes about 2 minutes in the sun for me to get more and more brown. And I've been doing lots of walking. I've been making sure that I get in about 5 miles a day. So kind of 3 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon. We're very remote and isolated. So here we really can walk and not worry about social distancing. So that's the answer to that question. I want to just comment and see who's on. What I want to start with today is one of the topics we're going to be doing besides answering your questions. So if you've got help me with, get those up there. But one of the things I'm seeing a lot of people do is make gratitude lists, right? And a lot of you know how I feel about gratitude. It's easy to be grateful for things we like. So when you think about the 100 things that happened today and the 4 things you thought were really groovy that please your ego, it's easy to put those on the gratitude list. For me, true gratitude is when you can be grateful for it all. And even if in the moment it seems like a tragedy, I know from living my life that those things I thought were the worst days ever, when I look back with some perspective, I can totally see how those turning points, even the tragic ones, happened in my favor. Moving forward, or there's some wonderful things to be grateful for. But I'm not going to ask you about gratitude. What I want to ask you about today is for those of you, especially if you're on a computer, watching this on Facebook or on your phone, and have the ability to have me turned on and join our group. What have you noticed about your own privilege? Like, not one thing you're grateful for, but what's one thing that you've noticed that is a privilege you have in life that this pandemic has exposed? Because it's easy to get really focused on how we've been disrupted and that our ego preferences, aren't what we want and that we can't get kind of our favorite coffee creamer. Like, I want you to start noticing, as we're noticing how we move through this, like, what are some of the things that you're privileged by? I want you to notice your privilege. Like, is the fact that you're actually literate, meaning you can get good information from the internet, which is a privilege of access to the internet, and to have a printer. And, so some people who are like, hey, I'm doing great with my kindergartner. It's a privilege probably if you have a printer, because most of kindergarten assignments are things you print off and have them, draw or color. So it can be as simple as literacy or internet, because some of the things that we get most irritated by, it's not simply turning those into a reframe of gratitude. It's realizing right now how this pandemic is exposing privilege. Like, even if the facts that you have reserves, that your worry is how do I get through the month, and somebody else's worry is how do they get through the day, that's a privilege. If you're of a demographic where, when we look at the numbers, you're more likely to get access to medical care than somebody else, that's a privilege. And this isn't anything to be made politicized, and I know my fans don't do that. You guys are so respectful and inclusive. This isn't about any statement. This is about us noticing in those ways and cultivating our current experience, our current pains, for better understanding and better knowledge. So I am Jillian. How are you? She's learning a lot. I'm so grateful. Bethany, glad that you heard my podcast. I answered your question on there. And she said, I did recognize my ego, which is why I paused before my reply to my team. She had a great question about being frustrated and how to really work with people that are high emotion and a little bit, moving into some of the negative parts of what's happening and feeling inconvenienced by the whole thing, which is all ego, yours and mine. We're quick to label, we're quick to judge, we're quick to know. And now it's time, Bethany, great job on pausing. Heidi has a question, and I'm going to get back to that. Heidi, it's a great question on triggers. I'll come back to that. Jaren, I hope you heard why I'm tan. I'm in Mexico. Hi from Missouri. Good to see you, my friends. Mike, good to see you on. Elaine is remembering peace, faith, and that we can find light and understanding. It heals the heart. Um, People come into our lives for many reasons, and we're grateful for all of our friendships. I'm grateful for you guys on here, definitely. So many cool people. Erin is admitting she or he, I can't tell, is full of ego right now. You guys, I teach this stuff, and I find myself getting irritated and judgmental and exclusive and feeling sorry for myself and pity party. And we're all full of ego right now, and probably the illusion we're always full of ego. I don't know that we can move to a point where we're not full of ego. The key is noticing and bypassing that ego and toggling up and compassionately just realizing that that's just really part of who we are, and that we can just notice and choose differently, that we can take note of when that's going on and then try and have habits and practices and resets that can move us behind or beyond all of this. So I'm just looking, so many good people here. I want to get to some of your privileges. Amanda's 1-year anniversary is today. She was supposed to be celebrating with us in Denver. You guys, I forgot we were going to be in Denver today. And we'll get there. We'll get all those, we'll get to you guys. We'll make it right with everybody. Erin, thank you. Mexico does agree with me. And what mostly agrees with me is I am practicing as much as I can what I preach about self-care rather than self-soothing. I've chosen to go through this time completely without alcohol, so I can be wide awake for this. I have chosen, we'll talk about this, not to have a list of to-dos, but to have intentions and dedications that I put as cornerstones in my day. And as I get lost on social media, I notice I might be anxious, and I just go to my list, my anchor, my conscious piece of things I dedicated myself to today. And it's not a schedule, I just pick one. Would this be time to go for a quick walk? Would this be time to meditate? I'm creating new material for all of you. And so in order to do that, in the past, I've always created material. I worked all day, got on a plane, 9 o'clock at night. I've written my books and, done just like crazy edits with other people all the while, because then I was really just kind of documenting what I talked about all day. This next book is different. I am reflecting on some of my biggest personal lessons, ways I've discovered universal principles, how I have lived the stuff I teach in a really messy way in my personal life. And that's what I'm writing about is Life's Messy, Live Happy. And it is about looking back on how I've moved through the world, sometimes skillfully, sometimes not, always humanly, and how I've done things like tried to pass the test and be the enlightened one. And so I got into spiritually bypassing or denying feelings, or I'm sorting through all of this and for you. And I'm writing much more inspired writing. This is a deep offering I'm going to be bringing up to you guys. So Cindy says a privilege is the ability to work from home. Absolutely, the folks having a home. There's so many people in our country and throughout the rest of the world who don't have a home. And it's so important to the fact that we have a job, that we can work from home, that we have employers that are finding ways, and employees that are being so flexible and finding ways to keep things going. And that you don't have to get on a crowded subway and get exposed many times a day in a checkout line. Like those of us that can work from home are so privileged. We are just celebrating while we are in quarantine, absolutely. So Tina, those of us that, maybe are in healthcare but can work from home, it is absolutely a privilege. Our income isn't impacted, people are saying. It's such a privilege. And for those of you that tend to be the folks that are those folks that will rush into the front lines. So those of us that have played different roles in healthcare, we also might be noticing that we have some survivor's guilt, some guilt about being at home. Well, so many people we love are on the front lines and figuring that out. Thanks, Shauna, saying I will stay safe and healthy. Camille says that she's a U.S. citizen. She can work legally here. We have so many folks caught between borders and their legal status and that just by being born in one country we have more access to an economy than other folks have, and that's a great call out. That she says she knows some undocumented people who are terrified to drive to work, even though they're essential. And by the way, a lot of the essential people saving our tail right now are more than likely not fully documented. And so these are just good people who are doing what they need. Even the fact that as some of us can make decisions, I'm privileged in the way that I at any time can make a decision to say to one of my kids, you don't have to go to the front line to essential work and be exposed. Like, we as a family can support you financially. Like, just the ability to have options. Some people are just feeling like the invisible exposure is worth the math of, their dedication to their family or their friends or, their partners, or it's really, all that they have. Mike is saying, hi, Mike. We've always loved our house and neighborhood, but as the kids are home longer, the space and neighborhoods continue to grow much better through creativity. I've seen so many cool things people are doing, like, taking people on video tours of the grass in their yard and seeing animals. Like, people are getting so creative with what's going on. Passover by Zoom, and, how symbolic for those of you that practice Passover, just the symbolism of doing that through a whole new medium and technology. And as people say at the end of Seder, next year in Jerusalem, it's like that ever hopefulness that we will move through this, and the ending is always a good one. A lot of people are feeling privileged to work from home, even though, businesses closed. It gives us some level of control, feeling of control over our lives, although that's always an illusion. And Jillian's, I'm going to shout you out again because she's woohooing a shout out from me. Access to so many great people around the country. I am so echoing that, and just the fact that we can do this right here. I haven't needed to reach out to the point where I'm like down in the hole and, overcome with the emotion. But the fact that I feel held by so many, like, I literally could go to my Facebook page and I have 65,000 people that I know I've done my best to give them love and help them out. That 65,000 people, the universe is so supportive. It's just mine for the asking, whatever, I would need. And there's a lot of folks out there that are feeling so lonely, even though they're standing in lines of hundreds, because they're in long lines trying to get their needs met, and, food or, whatever that is. And, for all of us, just look at those times our ego has us believing we're alone or separate and dependent, or overly dependent on another, and really flip that switch and get back to resilient people. As I've said through this whole thing, aren't the ones who are strongest or most creative or can muscle their way through this. The new form of resilience is about connection, and then the vulnerability of being willing to ask for help, and the vulnerability of being willing to reach out. Just the fact Angela is saying she has a computer and an iPad and she can remain connected to the world. A lot of people don't. I was talking to a friend last night, and her mom has an iPad, but in the nursing homes that she's in, they're locked down to the point that some of these folks are in their very small room because they're trying to protect the patients, the residents, from the virus. And they really only come out of that room like once a week to have private access to, showering and bathing if they have physical needs that they need to do that in an assisted way. And Some people are grateful for the 8 weeks of, being able to at least work, even though it's a 25% pay cut. The hospitals put it in place. I'm hearing all kinds of founders and leaders, not take their own pay because they feel they have reserves, and being able to just make sure that their employees are cared for is really bringing about frugality and more awareness of how we've been so privileged. For me, it's so true as I really look at my cupboard and things I would pass by, like, oh, yeah, I'm not eating that, I'm not eating that. And just really thinking about eating in a way of what's going to go to waste first. And it's not about what I prefer, but about what's available. And quite honestly, I haven't done that in my life for a long time. And it's not for me to have the, quaint insight. I'm trying to, when I find those places, I'm trying to stop a minute and see if I can't tag the compassion that just blossomed in that moment, the realization how easy it is to move through life and avoid or not get in touch with that, because to get in touch with it is a little painful. But to just find that place where I'm like, I'm going to pause a minute and just let that, break my heart a little bit for people that live that way every single day. Some of us get so anxious about the virus, and I have so many people I know that are living with anxiety issues every single day. And half jokingly, they're like, well, welcome to my world. Now you know what it's like. You're finding it hard to get up and shower every day. That's like my whole life living with depression. So I hope that all of this helps us all rejoin the human race. But for the grace of God, go I. Like, rejoin the human race, you guys. We are all that we had, it was an illusion. The fact that we had control was an illusion. It always will be. The fact that things like that keep us safer, like, that is all instruments of ego, which will continue to go deeper in. Having an entire staff who all the smartphones, which, makes things easy to communicate with them. For those of us that were already working remotely, we didn't have to go through that pain. We were just like, great, nice to, we'll be here to welcome the rest of you coming. That's awesome. So privileged to have a staff, makes your life easy communicating with them while the business is closed. Grateful for amazing boss. Yay, Ellie. Go Cy. Oh, that's going to make me emotional. Alex Dorr, Ana Martos, Correa Dorr, home on maternity leave. And you would not believe the work that woman gets done while bringing a little one up. It's amazing. Sarah Meese, George Wakeman, Maria Stamp, you guys are all amazing. So many good things. I hope you go through the privileges. I just, want people to continue to just understand and really take in the level of privilege that's coming across. Thank you guys for noticing and really, getting the facts, getting down to one mission, one dedication I have is in my life to produce and, take care of folks and enjoy life and enjoy kind of the fruits of my labors. I have found that there are ways that I've gotten too far away from the connection with the human race, which really is what opens us up. That part, like half of our life is not all the winning, it's the losing and the letting go and the grieving. Like exactly half of our life is the stuff moving away from us, the goodbyes. Like in our life, none of us leave here without even having to say goodbye to everybody we love as they pass, or them, watching us pass as we have to say goodbye to them. It's like that half we just ignore. We like to talk about the wins, but what I have found out is if you can get back to sitting with just the noticing and the pain and the sometimes the sadness that comes with that, that if you can feel that and not think it, because your ego wants you to go, well, yeah, they made bad choices. And I mean, if you can just feel it, what's in there is the seed of so much of your creativity. Like, how many times do you notice how innovative you are when you're in some pain, or how creative you are, or even just like writing when you're in the midst of, think about your last breakup and how much you could, more enjoy music. How many of you remember, high school, college, you broke up with a love, and you were writing songs and listening to music. If we avoid the pain, I'm not talking wallow in it, I'm not talking self-pity, the true clean pain, the clean stuff. If we avoid that, we get disconnected from so much of what brings us art and poetry and new insights and all of that stuff. So, and what we, took for granted, we no longer do. We appreciate and embrace our moments. We've become closer in spirit. I love that, Bridget. I love that. May those, Mary, those will come afterwards. What you do next is what makes the difference. Awesome. So let's go to some questions. I want to get back up to Heidi. You had a great question. Thanks for being brave and asking this. So Heidi's question is, now that I've communicated my trigger to my loved one, how do we move past hurt feelings? Okay. When we communicate that something is triggered, what will happen normally is we'll just keep getting triggered until we stop the spiral. Because what's happening is that it might not be hurt feelings, it might be shame, embarrassment. I've communicated, I took a risk. You didn't react like, oh my gosh, thanks for sharing. You react, ticked off. Now I'm like embarrassed and ashamed. I'm like, I should never opened up to you. And now I'm hurt and you're hurt because maybe I pointed out something you didn't even know you were doing that was frustrating. All of that stuff, when we do communicate something, can really, get the ego involved on both sides. And we go into story. That's why I never tell you anything, and I'm never going to bring anything up again. And we just begin the loneliness and the separation and the armoring up, as Brené Brown, who we all adore, says. So one of the things that you can do to get past your hurt feelings, right? Because you can't really work on the other, is if you communicated something and you communicated your trigger, is first of all, get past your own hurt feelings. And how you do that is you really feel your feelings and notice what feelings are not hurt, but they're shame, they're embarrassment. How do you know? You'll start negative self-talk. You'll start hearing yourself think ridiculous things. I'm never opening up to anybody ever again. This is, I probably should even consider like divorcing this person. They're totally incapable, and oh yeah, and they do stuff, and you start, if it's that stuff, if what you're feeling seems to get you racing in your thinking, seems to get you planning for extreme measures, that's just shame and vulnerability. And what I want you to do with that is, you can't stop that. What you need to do is apply self-compassion and self-love and say, whoa, time out. Let's put some love on that. Let's put some healing on that. I'm a human being. I took my best shot at sharing a trigger. I probably didn't do it well. I didn't have the right words for it. It separated us for a moment. That's all that's going on. What's my truth? I care about this person. I'm willing to be hurt again. That's why I stay, but I would rather not be. I would like some help from them if they're willing. And once you get into that place, notice how your heart closed down and your mind closed down. So folks, when we're doing brave things in relationships and it's messy, we will take a baby risk, and then when it gets scary, our mind will close down, we judge, our heart will close down, we armor up. You can start either place. I can either start with my mind opening up by editing my story, getting to the facts, getting mentally flexible. Instead of one explanation for this, that they're just a horrible person and are arrogant and egotistical and they don't care, to see if there are multiple explanations. Gosh, that might have been really scary for them because, they might be going through some hurt because I said this has been going on for a while and I never was honest with them. And they might be questioning, like, what else don't they know? And they might be worried about being abandoned or being left. Or if I can find lots of explanations in my mind opening up, what you'll notice is your heart starts opening back up. You're like, oh, they're just scared too. Now we can connect. What's the truth? We're both scared. If you can't open your mind up, you are like, no. Try opening your heart up by doing this thing. How can I understand this because I am this? Let me go back to a time where I've reacted to somebody telling me about their trigger and I mocked them, or I laughed, or I said that's ridiculous, or I told them to suck it up. Like, if you can find your own humanness, how you are like that too, a lot of times it pops your mind back open. And here's the deal. Your heart and mind are connected. Open mind, open heart. Closed mind, closed heart. Closed heart, closed mind. So that's how you get past it. And then I talked last time about some repair attempts that when somebody is, you have shared with them and it's changed their world a little bit, one of the things you need to do is find something sincere and true where you really go to them and you say proximate. Like, a lot of times we tell people that and then we separate physically. Like, in a moment, find a way to be tender and show tenderness. So, if it's somebody who's a partner to you, like when you're passing in the hallway, just ask for consent. Just go, my heart's really open right now, and I just want you to know I really love you. I would love to hug you. Is there anything I can do to support you right now? Find something they did that you can affirm them. I really appreciate, I know when I first told you this, you may have responded out of some fear or whatever was going on for you, but I just want you to know I appreciate, I see you're pondering this and thank you. Like, find something to appreciate about them and just continue not to push for conclusion, not to name things too soon, to stay open. And when you're tempted to go out mentally, just see if you can't go one step in. Like, I have to literally tell myself, because my little girl in me is like, I am out of here. I didn't need you in the first place, and I can do it myself. And this is why I don't have a lot of people. I have to go sit, stay open. Can I be curious a bit longer? If you have amends to make amends the way you did it. Also, be okay with not over processing something, not talking about it. Don't think because the person isn't verbalizing their change that they aren't considering it. Be careful with one another right now. And by the way, when we set boundaries and we tell triggers, a lot of times we set boundaries and we say, so I need you not to do this. A better boundary is to say, when this happens, which it probably will, we're doing the best we can with what we have. Here's how I will take care of myself. And do you hear the difference in that? A lot of times we set boundaries that take things away from people instead of setting boundaries that say, when this happens in my environment, I will take care of myself in the following way, and find a way that's not punishing to somebody else. So the example I give that's not pandemic related is I worked with a mother, or a woman who had just married a man, and they had his children with them part-time. And she valued table manners, and she valued coming to a dinner that was calm and a place to kind of release a hard day and be in community with people. And he didn't have some of those same values. He was, his dinners were like times to get kids fed, and the kids were less than peaceful according to her, right? I'm trying to describe this neutrally because that's where I want you to get to. It's just what people valued. And so she would sit and just get so frustrated about people interrupting and loudness and pounding on the table and not using utensils. And taking too much food and not eating what you take, like all the rules that she had and she grew up with, no one was practicing. So for the longest time, she would nag him, like, you need to do something with your kids. You need to teach them manners. When they do that, and nothing ever changed. She was setting boundaries, and then she would threaten. She would say, and she would critique, like, you're not a good dad, and these kids are going to grow up, not able to conduct a business dinner. And it just was always this lack of love. And so when we talked about boundaries, I'm like, what is it you need? And she goes, well, not always, but there are some nights I just need peace and quiet. And I said, so if there's a place at the dinner table or a time when you're not getting what you need, what would be a boundary you could set that's just for you to follow through? She's like, well, I guess I could go eat on our porch. We have a nice table out there. In those moments, I could just remove myself. And I'm like, how can you do that, leaving other people's dignity intact with lots of love? How can you take care of yourself? So she just said, you know what? This is, you guys are having a lot of fun. This is, I'm needing some peace right now. So I am going to right now take care of myself and go out to the porch. And as she did that without motive, she got the peace she needed when she needed it. But it was a boundary she set for herself. And he was there with his kids. But what started happening when you do boundaries well is it leaves people with a direct relationship with their own situation. And they can work it out or not. But he started to just, instead of having a two-front war where he could focus on her always nagging about his kids, he was just there left to manage his kids. And he started going, this doesn't work for me. And then he's like, I really would like to eat with you, my wife. And she's like, that would be awesome. I'd love to eat together. Here's some of the minimal things I would like to work on then for me to be at the table. And if you can do that with staying in your lane and out of these demands for other people, it's really important. And so for all of you, this is a real time of setting boundaries. And you can't set boundaries with starting with critique of another. They're doing them. They're doing them. That's just not your business. You've got to come to really identify what you need and identify how you'll take care of yourself and identify, how involved you'll be with the situation. A lot of people set boundaries like, I don't want you, texting other people when we're early in our dating relationship. Well, if your boundary is trying to change the behavior of another, what you need to decide is if you want, at a certain point, texting monogamy, then you need to ask, would you be okay with us just texting each other? And then if somebody's not okay with that, you need to decide what you'll do with that. But a lot of people stay in relationship with people texting others and just critique the ones doing it instead of removing themselves. So I hope that's clear because I want you guys to be thinking about boundaries. I'm looking at some questions. I'm going to go clear to the bottom and just say, hi, Tracy's on again. Erin, you're doing a great job interacting with us. I'm glad, Tracy, that you're loving these broadcasts. Erin, I think, I haven't counted, but she gets the prize for commenting. You make things so unmessy. This really helps me. I'm glad. We don't need to be in shame, you folks. Stephen, my wonderful coach and friends, we cannot accept until we acknowledge. Absolutely. Mary Hennepin from way back. Good to see you. All good stuff. I want to talk, we hit on a couple of things, but I wanted to talk a little bit in our time, and I'll keep looking for your questions, you guys. Talk a little bit about, we've talked about boundaries. That was one of my notes. I want to talk about this shame and just the mean things we do to ourselves, the lack of compassion. So many people, when they either are judging or thinking negatively, they think they can power through and stop their thinking. And that is just like, if you imagine how a radio works, there's a signal that's just always playing. And sometimes the dial tunes in and receives it. But we can't always control what song's being played on the station. That's not ours, and that ego's just kind of always playing. And the ego is it judges, right? It's the source of creating separation. But a lot of times the ego isn't judging just other people. The ego judges inwardly without mercy. And that's really where we get in touch with, like, I'm not enough and I never was enough. The ego separates us from our who we are at source, like our authentic or our essential self, which is always enough. How do we know? It's the reflection of all that is, regardless of your religious beliefs. Like, that spirit is just, I mean, it is enough. So what happens with ego a lot of times is we turn it inward and it gets kind of violent. And I want you to start really listening in to some of the chatter going on in your head at times. And we teach you how to edit your story, but when it comes to this type of spiral shame thinking, you need to stop. You can't squelch it. It will keep playing. You can't control it. But you need to stop and you need to apply something loving to it. So if you imagine a contained space, it's not that I can kick something out. It's only I can apply something in equal measure that offsets it. So for instance, it's like if you're thinking versus when you're meditating, it's you can't do both at once. I talk about that. You can't judge and help simultaneously. It's not, I'm just going to tell myself to stop judging. You have to flip these switches to bypass. You have to leave one and feed another. It's where you give your attention to. It's what you apply and bring in. So it's just like you can't fight the darkness, you apply light. It's that concept. So there are some things that when I want you to catch yourself and get firm and just say, nah, and then get compassionate and then find a more spacious way to name that reality you're naming. And so I've got to put my glasses on. I found this on Instagram and it was spectacular about the pandemic. And it is from Dr. Kelly Vincent. So at Dr. KELLYVINCENT. And she, I think it's a she, because I follow her. She said, here's some examples. So when you're thinking, and this is kind of shameful and violent towards yourself, you're thinking, I need to be productive during this time. It seems like everybody else is, right? It's saying, you know what? I'm going to take one day at a time and I'm going to acknowledge that productivity will come and go. And so I'm going to work with this and I'm going to be productive as possible and make best use of those times that I'm feeling the energy. Now, what this does is it is holding yourself accountable, right? So it's giving yourself a break while not letting yourself off the hook. And this is super important. This is a big and. When I talk about being compassionate as you go through this time, I want you guys letting yourself off giving yourself a break, but not letting yourself off the hook, because part of what we really need to do is push through some of this, find a way to be resilient, find a way to be innovative. So another great couple of these, she says things like, I feel like I'm failing as a parent. I can't keep up. And, how about just like I'm doing the best I can during a pandemic? I doubt that 1 month of first grade math is going to ruin my child's future if they miss it or I don't teach it that well. Like, what can I focus on that we are learning in this time? My kids are driving me bonkers, so I'm a terrible parent. And it's like, of course I'm going to feel frustrated. This is hard. This is crazy stuff, right? Why am I the only one so anxious? What about everyone processes things differently? They process emotion differently. I didn't freak out about working from remotely because I've been doing it forever. So don't compare you to me or to anyone. I handle the unknown. I can't handle the unknown. The anxiety is out of control. Like, what about things like the unknown can be scary, but I'll try to focus on what I can control. And I say this because I really want you guys to listen to the ways that your ego plays you into shame and into not being enough. Anytime you feel like you're not acing this test, you're not enough, it's like, it's not that you're doing life right. Glennon Doyle in her new book, Untamed, it was so beautiful. It's like you are doing life right. It's messy. And that's why I'm focusing so much on my book, how messy life really is. So really get firm and get choosing. Choose what you're going to give your attention to. If you're thinking something that doesn't fit for you or you do not want to choose for yourself, do not attach to that thought. Thinking has no power over you. You're the observer of the thinking. The only time it becomes reality for you is when you agree, when you choose, when you believe, when you attach. And that's why I say a lot, like the worst thing you can do is believe your own thinking, because that thinking just is thinking. And it has zero influence on you if you're just the witness, just the noticer. It's actually kind of entertaining how creative your minds can be, or tiring when you realize that tape's been going on in your head for 25 years. You've proved it untrue for a long time, but you can't fight it. To fight it, you have to tangle with it and attach with it. And you can offset it with some affirmations and some meditation and other things. But until that transformation happens, what you can do is look at it and just say, here's what's more true for me is I'm going to acknowledge these times are tough, and I wasn't as equipped as I am now hoping I will be in the future. So what can I do next? I can just work on equipping myself and learning all I can. Gentle, gentle, gentle. Don't believe and agree. It is the agreeing, the attaching that creates this in your life. Just let it fly by like a cloud. Notice that it's there and reaffirm for yourself what is more true for you. And choosing is really important right now, because what we're choosing and what we're giving attention to becomes our future. And so, even when I asked your privilege, right now, we are exposing the results of so many of our choices as people, as neighbors, as a nation. A lot of people go, "Oh my gosh, in New Orleans, the hurricane was a natural disaster, and this pandemic is a health disaster." There's some philosophers out there that say there really is no such thing as a natural disaster. Nature happens. The failure of our systems, the ones we chose, the ones we created, the ones we put in place, that's what created the disaster. And I think, you guys, we have to get really clear on what we choose, whether it's our internal dialogue and what we choose to affirm and feed in our life. And we've got to take those moments and let our heart break open for what our fellow humans are going through, because that is a vivid picture of the accumulation of all of our choices to date. And in accountability, folks, if you can't own it, you can't change it. And that's why I say things like, don't waste a good pandemic. Do not ignore what our world looks like right now and how quickly it could be brought to its knees through a pandemic. And I'm not saying we should have known in November. I'm not saying that. We were susceptible to this no matter when we knew. It's not about scapegoating a person, a group. It is about getting in touch with that we have been part of some generations of choosing for our part in the human race. And a lot of times we separate and see ourselves in a better or worse position, and we choose according to our ego's preference rather than the potential, which is what is going to nourish and feed all. So as you're choosing your thoughts, choose nourishing thoughts. Right now, don't just, think about what you eat. Really choose the nourishing thoughts you're giving yourself. Choose nourishing behaviors towards others. Just make really good choices. And a lot of you, trying to look here, sessions will be saved. And Sarah just said, I found out my company got acquired. I'm in HR and don't know the state of my job. It's only been a few days, but I've probably already spent hours with combined BMW driving and worrying. How can I get out of my ego so I can take ownership of my reaction to this? Okay. Fear. Okay, so ego like loves fear. And a lot of us don't understand fear. Like we think fear is, pardon my French, but FEAR, fuck everything and run, or fuck everything and retaliate. Like it is false events appearing real. FEAR. It is the food of the ego. And you notice what happens is when I hear that my company has been acquired and I don't know what this means for me. And um, there's two ways to go through that, joy or misery. They're really the same because worrying is just a behavior. Venting is a behavior. It's a way of spending energy that actually fuels the exact outcome you don't want. It fuels the feeling you don't want. It fuels your view of the world that cuts you off rather than connects you in. And so be very careful to feel the feelings and that's grief, but stick with the facts. What do I know for sure right now? And don't just stick with the facts of, I only know we'll hear more next Tuesday. Stick with the facts of, for today, right now, I have the food I need. I'm a very talented HR person. I have a lot of skills. I have been through hard times in the past. So many times our confidence is because we thought we had our circumstances wrapped up. Instead of our confidence being portable, our confidence should be that I'm confident I have a great network of people. I'm confident I've treated people really well and there's no reason to believe they won't take care of me. So you really have to be careful that you're entering into the virtual world and the world of fake news of the ego. And in that fake news world where you're just getting played by your ego, there is so much to bitch about and there's so much to be scared of. The ego loves fear. The ego eats anger for lunch to stay alive. The ego is all about two options. When you toggle down, you're seeing the world through a corrupted lens, and you are into fight or flight. You are into, I am so threatened. When you're toggled up, you can see so many more options. There's all these portals of how this can be okay and this can be good. And so you start using softer language, you start using more accurate language, you get close in. Instead of worrying about 3 months from now when I and 10 million other people are looking for a job in my area, you get close in for today, right now. You get really flexible in your language. I'm screwed. It's like I may not have the role going forward I had in the past. Like loosen up your language, feel the feelings, be compassionate. You're going to, be all centered and evolved. And then you're going to go down this path and you're going to get self-righteous and get online and, gossip and vent with your people. Just watch how you go through this. Be good with yourself. Watch how you can change how you feel and move your experience of the same world just by where you attach to your thinking, what you question, how often you move out of thinking and back into self. Eckhart Tolle talks about a key technique when the mind is racing and you're attached to the concrete, that if you can just sit with breath and just get back in your own body, just like feel the energy in your toes and your feet, just bring the energy back into your physicalness, it automatically takes it away from the thinking and gets you back in touch. And just practice these things. Your reality is your reality. I want you to use this as a time to really start to understand how different the experience can be, not based on your circumstances, same circumstances, based on you practicing some of these techniques that I'm giving you. Now, for many of you, so like Sarah just had, a big disruption. It's like I'm back into kind of surviving, coping, and then she had a big disruption. Some of you got this disruption and you're like, okay, well, I will put in a temporary situation. I muscle my way through for 2 weeks. And we're beyond that, folks. And so now is the time I want you guys to stop with the muscling through. I'm only doing this for 2 weeks. So, I just, will allow some pretty bad behaviors, and I won't worry about my eating, and I'll stay up to the middle of the night watching Netflix, and, I'm going to do pandemic, social media cruising. Like, we had something happen to us. We all gave ourselves kind of 2 weeks to put in pretty unsustainable practices. Many of you were innovative. I saw colleagues of mine move 500 people out of buildings and work from home in just a week. You maybe set up your home office on a coffee table that's right out in the middle of all the traffic. Now's the time to take another pause, especially for some of you as you come into this weekend. The world will maybe ease up a bit from a work perspective. Take a pause and let's intentionally curate some things that are going to work a bit longer term for you. Let's get into some intentional choosing. And that's kind of my assignment to you. How I do this is I don't want to strap myself with any more to-dos, ways at the end of the day I can feel like more of a failure and I didn't get enough done. And I teach this stuff, yet I was distracted and, unable to get stuff done. So what I do for me is I don't start with my list anymore about what I need to do. Now, if there are some essential things that I need to get back to my accountant so I can apply for, PPA, sure, but I want those to be absolutely essential. I want you to radically simplify so that you make sure what's essential is very essential. Then I want you to, or I would suggest, it's helped a lot of people. I want you to, before you make another list about, I'm going to do yoga every day, or I want you to really just take 5 minutes, even if you have to fake going to the bathroom to get away from people, fake taking the garbage out. I don't care how you get out. 5 minutes. How, at the end of the day, do I want to feel? And get in touch with that. For me, I want to feel vibrant and open. And for me, creativity is a feeling like inspired. I want to feel, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. To me, are feelings like I want to be wide awake. And so I'm not saying sad, mad, glad, or scared, like I want to feel happy. More like at the end of the day, what do you want name the experience you want to be having as a human being at the end of today. And then I go back and I go, okay, I want to feel healthy, awake, alive, with energy, accomplished, having, created something, like whatever it is for you. And then reverse engineer not what you need to get done today, but how you want to feel, and not what you need to do to get there. See how your mind is like, okay, I'll do that. I want you to just identify some practices or habits that if you chose to dedicate yourself to, not commitment so that you have to measure whether you failed or didn't, some things you're going to dedicate yourself to in whatever sloppy way, you're just going to commit to giving some attention to. What are those things? So for me, walking I have found really essential here. I start my day with it and I end my day with it. And while I walk, I do some reflection. Meditation twice a day for me is no longer a have to. I've been practicing TM long enough. It's just like itching your brain or like opening your head up and, rinsing, kind of shampooing your brain. It soothes my neurological system. So it's almost like a craving for me. So I have on my list connection. So I want to connect with somebody. I have on my list walking, meditating. I do like a really healthy shake with a lot of veggies and fruit. Whatever it is for you, put those down. And then don't make the schedule to get them done. Notice as you move through life that you look at the list because it's visible and you go, you know what? I just got into some activity. I'm starting to feel anxious. I'm noticing it's not feeding me. I'm going to instead look at my list of dedications and choose, is there one thing on that list that I want to dedicate myself to? And just notice how your choosing by the end of the day leaves you feeling differently. And one thing I'm choosing right now is really good sleep hygiene. I was taking my computer and my phone to bed and, I watched the entire series, which are 6 seasons of Gracie and Frankie. And I'm like, I just added this. I want to feel in the morning incredibly rested, and I was getting really sloppy with my sleep hygiene. So I'm going to dedicate myself to a good night ritual. So I'm offering that to you. We're coming to a close. It's time that we've gotten through some of these emergency things to get ourselves settled, because there's a lot of folks out there that need for us that are privileged to get settled so that we can get focused on helping some others. A lot of us with the most resources got sent to our home, and we're dealing with homework and work. We're the ones probably most capable of getting ourselves settled and being responsible to ourselves and our family, so that we can at least get into these habits that will free us up to start focusing to the rest of the world that did not have the reserves and the privilege we had coming into this. And I will be back. What's today? Thursday? I forget. Next Tuesday, I won't be here. We'll announce. I'll be back on Thursday. You guys be good to each other. Use this as a time to not just have impact in your family and get through this, but to be impacted in wonderful ways so that this experience evolves you into that awesome human being that you are and that you could be. So good to see all of you on, and take care of each other. Be good to each other. And we got this. We got this. Thanks.